Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really profound and timeless spiritual tale from the ancient markets of Khorasan. It's a powerful narrative that basically challenges our entire definition of righteousness, morality, and justice. We're going to embark on a journey that, honestly, forces us to look in the mirror and question the true foundations of our own good deeds. Let's just dive right into this compelling kisa, which is a classic moral story, by asking what I think is the ultimate question here. Can one single tear actually outweigh a literal mountain of good deeds? Keep this mystery in the back of your mind as we walk through the story together, because the answer redefines everything we think we know about being a quote-unquote good person.
All right, part 1, the merchant's strict rule. Meet our protagonist, Khawaja Harris. He was this highly respected merchant in the bustling markets of Khorasan. Now, if you walked past his shop, the very first thing you'd notice was this massive hanging scale. And he basically built his entire life and business around one absolute, totally inflexible rule. He wouldn't give even one rati, which was the absolute smallest unit of weight back then, less to a customer, nor would he take a single rati more. His business was perfectly balanced, and he was absolutely certain his earnings were strictly halal or totally permissible.
Because of this, he genuinely believed, that no one earned a more righteous living than him. Since he never cheated that big hanging scale of his, he thought he was the most pious, righteous guy in the whole empire. But as we'll see, he had dangerously equated mechanical honesty with actual spiritual perfection.
Which brings us to part 2, the widow's desperation. Picture this, an old, deeply impoverished widow, literally trembling from weakness in torn clothes, steps into his shop. Driven by just pure agonizing desperation, she tries to sneak a tiny handful of flour and just a single roti into her shawl. But Khawaja's sharp eyes, they catch her instantly. He lunges, grabs her hand, and literally gathers the entire market to publicly witness her crime. Falling at his feet, right there in the middle of the crowd, she cries out this absolutely heartbreaking plea. She begs him, saying she isn't a thief, that desperation simply blinded her to the agony of watching her kids starve for 3 days. And it's so moving that even the gathered crowd steps in. They start begging Khawaja to just show a little mercy because of her extreme poverty. Now we hit part 3, the illusion of justice. But despite this desperate mother crying at his feet and the whole market pleading for mercy, Khawaja loudly declares that justice is blind. He absolutely refuses to budge. He claims that if he makes even a single exception, the integrity of his precious scale is compromised forever. He really thinks he's protecting justice, but he's completely blind to the fact that, honestly, he's just protecting his own ego. So he actually physically snatches that single roti right back from her shawl. He shoves the starving widow out of his shop and loudly bans her from ever coming back unless she has money. The poor widow walks away totally empty-handed, just shedding tears of utter humiliation. And Khawaja? He just stands there feeling smugly victorious, genuinely believing he successfully defended the truth. Moving on to part 4, the divine scales. Fast forward, many years pass, and Khawaja eventually dies. And in the afterlife, he experiences this terrifying but magnificent vision. He finds himself standing right in front of a massive, glowing, Nurani divine scale. Angels start piling up his lifelong good deeds. We're talking multiple pilgrimages, endless charity, and of course, his famous unbending honesty. It creates this literal mountain of good deeds that just slams the scale of virtues heavily to the ground. Khawaja smiles. He is absolutely certain that paradise is right at his feet. And right here, we see the ultimate duality of his life. You see, Khawaja spent decades obsessing over his earthly scale, measuring material things like gold and flour with these super strict, blind rules. But the divine scale, it operates entirely differently. It doesn't just measure the mechanical action of a good deed, it weighs the hidden truth, the spiritual intent, and, most importantly, it weighs tears. So just as Khawaja is standing there smiling, totally bathing in his own perceived glory, this booming, majestic voice echoes through the space. The voice commands an angel to place exactly one thing on the empty scale of his sins. Just one thing. The single tear of that helpless widow he publicly humiliated all those years ago. And as the angel places that single tear on the scale, there's this shocking reversal that completely shatters Khawaja's reality. That one microscopic drop of water hits the scale of sins with such immense force that it crashes to the ground, violently catapulting his entire mountain of lifelong worship, charity, and rigid honesty high into the air. That single tear proves infinitely heavier than 1,000 years of his ruthless, mechanical worship. Khawaja just screams out in terror, wondering how on earth this could possibly be justice.
Which brings us to our final section, Part 5, The Ultimate Lesson. A heart-piercing divine voice answers Khawaja's terrified screams. The voice explains that Khawaja's strict justice, it wasn't actually for God at all. It was driven by takabur, which is a deep, hidden arrogance. He used the guise of being this perfect, honest merchant just to satisfy his own ego and look down on everyone else. The voice tells him, when you snatched the roti from that desperate woman, you didn't strike her stomach, you struck my mercy. And then the voice issues this incredibly powerful final judgment. You were honest in weighing gold, but you forgot to weigh human pain. The ultimate truth revealed to Khawaja here is that a single tear falling from a broken, humiliated heart in the presence of the divine is infinitely heavier than centuries of devotion that lacks basic human empathy. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you to reflect on the mirror this story holds up to all of us. You know, it is so easy to hide behind policies, rules, and just the idea of being right. But we have to ask ourselves, are our own strict rules truly serving justice, or are they just feeding our arrogance? Are we completely missing the spirit of the law while worshiping the letter of the law? It's a lot to think about. Weigh your own actions carefully today, especially now that you know the incredible, staggering weight of a single tear.